When my daughter was born and she was on life support, the first person to hold me was my 5-year-old son. I walked in and I said, Mia was sick and I didn't know if she was going to get better. And I just broke down. And my son, my 5-year-old son that I am like 5 times the size of, just wrapped me up in a hug and held me while I was on my knees. But it's just a testament to having the people around you that will hold you up when you need to be held up. And you have to be willing to lean on those people.
Welcome to the Fellowship of the Gains podcast, everyone. This is Jesse Grun.
And this is Andrew Dettelbach.
Hey. We're going to be talking about men's mental health for Mental Health Awareness Month. This is a pretty important topic, especially for me and for Jesse. Jesse just told me about it 5 minutes ago, and I'm already ready to go talk about it. So listen up, because we have some tips, and we're also going to share some of our struggles.
Yeah, and we want to bring light to the fact that, I think what you see on social media isn't necessarily, I know this has probably been said time and time again, what you see on social media and what you see on YouTube is not necessarily the day-to-day struggles that each and every one of us go through in the dark by ourselves. And we want to let everybody know that we have our own struggles, things that we've gone through, things that we are still going through, and how we've worked through those things, and how you can also work through those things as well. So, Andrew, if you want to talk a little bit about what mental health means to you and some of the things that you have to, not specific instances that you deal with, but why it's a passion project for you, just like it is for me.
I think that exploring your personality and sharing your emotions with the people around you that you love and that care about you. I know that men in general are just taught really to kind of bury their feelings down. I thankfully was never really raised that way, and I was always raised to kind of share my feelings. And even to this day, like, it's still kind of difficult for me to do that because of the societal stigma of needing to just kind of bury some of those things down. And I'm grateful to have a wife and a mother and family that I can share all of my thoughts with. And I think it really just comes down to, are you able to open up and share your emotions so they're not bottling up, so that you don't, explode on someone or, show aggression or anger or whatever that typically looks like for men.
Yeah, I think there's this, I know I grew up in a household where it was not necessarily the opposite, but it wasn't necessarily as inclusive to feelings and stuff. So when I was younger, and this is just a quick anecdote, my parents separated for 3 years when I was younger. And so
they got back
together again. Yeah. So my parents separated, and then for 3 years, and then
trauma unlocked. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. And so then they ended up getting back together again, which was amazing. My dad went from this really dark person to, finding the Lord and giving his life to God, and then became this person with so much more light and was like, why is my family broken apart? I need to reunite my family again. And so my parents got back together. And what's interesting about that, though, is that I carried rejection that was associated with it pretty much from the time I was 5 until I gave it up when I was like 18. And basically I would cry at the drop of the hat if I felt like I did something wrong. Like if I got a B in school, I would cry. And I was made to feel terrible about it. Terrible. And there wasn't like exploration about me as a kid and like how I was feeling or what I was going through. It was just like, hey, stop crying. Hey, why are you crying about everything all the time? And I don't think they didn't necessarily do it from a place of love. I think they just, they didn't want me to feel those things. And so they didn't necessarily want to explore why I was feeling those things. And it took me until I was 18 to realize that I was like, I blamed myself for my dad leaving my entire life. And then and that's rejection. Like, hey, he rejected me. He didn't just reject us. He rejected me, and hanging on to that for as long as I hung on to it, and finally let it go. And it actually created a better relationship between me and my father, which was, which is rock solid to this day. I mean, it took me being like 18, 19 when I was finally like, hey, I forgive you and I don't hold anything in. But it kind of goes to what you were talking about, which is, having that inclusive environment that allows you to be able to express your feelings and being able to talk about them.
Yeah, and I think, I'm in therapy right now. So like on social media, like you alluded to, I've got hundreds of thousands of followers across multiple platforms. I think it's like 1.4 million people see me, and they always see like the good things. They always see the best images of me and like the best, I'm always smiling, laughing, whatever. And that just isn't true. And that is probably true of everyone on social media. Even the people that look the most authentic and are acting the most authentic still aren't sharing who they are. And for me, like I'm currently in therapy, and my therapist, I walked in there and he's like, well, the things I normally work with people first are on their lifestyle choices. And like, I already have a lot of that nailed down. So now we're kind of skipping that. But I think it's really important that we talk about those lifestyle choices for people and the things that are going to help reduce stress, anxiety, and improve mental health the most. The first thing,
Yeah.
go ahead. Yeah.
Raising the roof.
Raising the roof.
Raising the roof.
Exercise.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, God, if we could take the benefits of exercise for mental health and put them in a pill and sell them, it would be the fastest selling drug in the world. I firmly believe it. I mean, there's just so much science and research about what it does for your brain health, your mood, emotions. It's just so much that's associated with exercise.
I've been really down over the last year. We've had a lot of personal stuff going on. And just going down to the gym and lifting, I always feel at least 20% better. I'm never like, wow, I feel like euphoria and just like going crazy. It's never like that, but even just that little bump is super helpful.
Yeah, so I had back in 2024, are we in 2025? So 2023. My wife and I had a little girl, and she passed away 10 days after she was born. And I can't tell you what that experience was like.
I hope to never understand.
Yes, and most people, I don't wish it on anyone. And I stayed away from the gym and exercise for a couple weeks, probably 4 weeks of just me just kind of sitting in my stuff. But I can tell you, the first time I went into the gym and worked out was the first day that I felt a little lighter after everything. It was still heavy. It was just a little lighter than it was the day before. And it just became, and I owned a gym, and it just became the habit that was associated with it a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And I think there's something to be said about if you're sitting at home and going, where do I start? You just start with going for a walk, just start with, if you like lifting weights, go do your favorite exercise just a little bit and just start with little small bits, because those make a world of difference. We know brain chemistry changes just from exercise, which is runner's high is a real thing, by the way. I don't know if you really knew that. That's a real thing.
I've hated running, and I started running recently. I'm really heavy, so running fast kind of like hurts my joints a lot. So I started running like a 12-minute mile pace, and it's so damn slow. But I've finally gotten to a point where I'm like hitting 3 miles. I'm like, wow, I could just keep going. This feels nice. It's my first time experiencing that this last week.
They did a really good job. There's a funny Family Guy did a really good job. Like Brian was running and he was like, this is awful. And they're like, you're going to peek through. And then all of a sudden, like the sun comes up and it's like a smiling face and like the wind's blowing and birds are chirping. He's like, I can do this forever. And it's like runner's high we know that there's a brain chemistry change that occurs when you're doing exercise, especially aerobic based exercise, which is why there's a really good book, Andrew, if you're a reader, called Spark, which talks about exercise and mental health.
Heard of that book.
It's a great book. It talks about it's written by a psychologist who talks about how he's like prescribed exercise to his patients. He had somebody who was having anxiety issues and she loved jumping rope, so he had her have a jump rope all over the house to be able to use. Whenever she'd face anxiety, she'd knock out some sets on the jump rope and immediately feel better. And so it's really amazing the changes that we know it creates, and we know that if people do it and they start doing it consistently, how it helps with mental health. The other thing that really helps with mental health is just like generally speaking, taking better care of yourself holistically tends to lead to better mental health outcomes.
So one of those things would be sleep.
Yeah,
Sleep's
exactly.
a difficult one. Obviously it's like getting more sleep is ideal, but just improving the quality of your current amount of sleep can be huge. So if you only get 5 hours of sleep, let's make that 5 hours of sleep a really good quality. That could look like reducing the amount of lights you have on in your room. So trying to use like low lighting and reducing the amount of blue light exposure, trying not to look directly at your phone or changing your phone so that it has like a more yellow reddish hue. Making a cooler temperature. Your brain wants to fall asleep in cooler temperatures. And if it's too hot, your brain's going to stay wide awake. You're going to think a lot.
68 degrees,
68
I think,
degrees.
is the science.
Some people are saying like 64.
It's like 66 to 68 is, I think, the last research that I read.
I sleep better in the winter than I do in the summer. So I'm like, it's like 64 in our house in the summer.
I'm in Florida. There is no winter. It's all summer.
All summer, all day. And then not eating or drinking too close to bed. So this one's kind of neat. Like if you drink too much water before bed, you're going to get up to pee, which interrupts your sleep. And if you eat too sugary of food before bed, then your heart rate's probably going to stay elevated quite a bit. So if you can stop about an hour, at least an hour before bed, maybe even 2, you're going to sleep like a rock.
Yeah, and heavier meals before bed also do you a disservice because especially the body has to break them down. There are supplements out there. I will say this. A lot of people with sleep issues tend to take melatonin, which is actually a naturally occurring substrate hormone. Thank you. In the body. I wanted to say substrate. We were talking about substrates before, but it's a naturally occurring hormone in your body. I usually recommend that people take magnesium first before they take melatonin because magnesium supports the production of melatonin. So try to increase the natural production of melatonin in your body first before you start taking outside sources.
And melatonin is produced in the brain in the absence of light, and especially blue light. So if you have a bunch of bright lights on in your house and you're staring at your phone, melatonin isn't being produced. So you want to produce it.
Yeah, and we've also found that to help get better sleep, that goes back to the exercise thing, zone 2 exercise. So somewhere between 150 and 180 minutes a week tends to lead to better sleep quality, according to the research that's out there. So that's a 30-minute walk after dinner. That's all that is. So go to have dinner and do a 30-minute. Don't go do a 30-minute HIIT session. Because we also know that if you go work out really hard before bed, that can also interrupt sleep quality as well. So bad sleep tends to increase the fight or flight response in our body and throw everything off.
Another thing is diet.
Yeah.
Diet is a big one. I think that we have a lot of processed foods in our diet. We have a lot of sugar in our diet, which if you look at Mark Bell right now, he's doing a sugar fast currently. I would aim for a more holistic diet that involves fruits, vegetables, proteins. If you'll eat meat, eat meat. If not, eat the things that aren't meat, but eat plenty of that. Get lots of protein in your diet.
Yeah. Please don't take nutrition advice from someone who's openly geared up to the gills. Just don't do it. Okay. Because you can't
You're
really
not talking about me, right?
Yeah, definitely not you. No, definitely not you. Definitely not you. Somebody else who's very open about being geared up to the gills and also being on a sugar fast right now. Yeah, exactly. No, we do know that people with healthier, more wholesome diets tend to have better quality of life, and better quality of life leads to usually better mental health outcomes. And that's why we're talking about, and we're honestly talking about things right now that are within your control. And I think the hardest thing when we're going through mental health issues or episodes or just periods in our life that are more stressful than others is that they're stressful because my external environment is outside my control. And I can't control what's happening. And because I can't control what's happening, I have this desire to control it, or I feel that it is just happening and I can't do anything about it. And it becomes so critical for you to do the things in your life that you have control over. You have control over your physical health. You have control most of the time over the quality of sleep that you're getting, whether or not you're exercising, whether or not you're eating, you're getting your steps in per day. Another good one is journaling. So I don't know, Andrew, if you've ever done any journaling before,
I don't
but
successfully do it long enough. It doesn't work for me.
and for some people it works great, and for some people it works poorly. For me, after, like I said, after my daughter passed, I did a lot of journaling during that time period, and I can go back and look and see how things progressed over that time period. And the other one that I would mention with journaling is either prayer or meditation. So they tend to get, meditation can get a bad name, mystic and all this stuff. Listen, it's about quiet and introspection. That's what it's about. I do that in prayer, but you can do that in meditation as well. There's a lot of Calm is a really good app for that. There's a lot of resources now that didn't exist when I was younger. There was just everything you had to do on your own. There were no resources for it.
I was talking to my therapist today because I teach people in my community, like, use meditation, even just a minute, like do 6-second inhales and exhales if need be for a minute. And I don't even do that. So it's like I was talking to my therapist. He's like, meditation isn't necessarily accessible for a lot of people. It's not something that people will do. So he taught me something that he does for his trauma clients, and it's pinching the area of tissue between your thumb and your index finger. There's some very tender points there. And you find that tender point, you pinch it, you take a big inhale, and you exhale as you release it. And you do that 3 or 4 times or so. And it's supposed to help calm the vagus nerve. So there's a little bit of science behind that. And just, it's like people do with the cold plunge. You get in the cold plunge and you get up to your neck and it calms your vagus nerve down or whatever. But not everyone's going to do that. That's not accessible for people.
Sure.
So this is just a quick way for anyone to access that. You're on a crazy meeting. You're in a really stressful situation. You can't just close your eyes somewhere. You can do something like that to calm yourself down.
Yeah, just like you kind of hinted at what I was going to say is my last one of things that cost you nothing you can do on your own, and that's just breathing.
Yep.
So if you read, especially nasal only breathing, because nasal only breathing, both in and out, accesses the vagus nerve. Nasal in, mouth out does not. And so being able to focus your breath in and out of your nose, and doing so, finding a tempo, finding a time to be able to do it for. I know there was a period a couple years ago where my dad was going through some cardio episodes, and my mom was freaking out about it. And I just sent her, I was like, hey, I want you to just do 4-6 breathing in through your nose, out through your nose for 5 minutes. Turn on some music that you like. If you lose the count, it's not a big deal. Just keep doing it. And at the end of 10 minutes later, I got a text from my mom, and she goes, "Thank you for sending me that. I feel so much better." And it took 5 minutes. There was no pill, there was no walking, there was no nothing. Tuning into your breath and breathing in and out of your nose can completely change the way your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system are working. And so being able to do that, which I know is for some people easier, for me, I love doing, if I'm anxious, I'll do breathing exercises. It sounds like for Andrew, it's a little bit tougher, but you just find what you can control and you can do.
I think it depends on how much stress or anxiety I have. Like, I know the goal is to just become present in that situation. So what I sometimes will do is I'll count my breaths. So I'll count in is 1, out is 2. And then once I get to 10, I restart at 1. So it forces your brain to just have to like restart, because if you don't, you just count to 1,000, like you can just tune it out. So by counting to 10, restarting, and counting the inhale and the exhale, it allows you to kind of stay a little bit more present and calm your mind.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, the stuff we're talking about when it comes to mental health shouldn't cost you any money. You kind of hinted at cold plunges. I have a cold plunge at home, and I think it does a really good job of helping me regulate my nervous system. That's the only benefit I use it for, is just regulating my nervous system and increasing my HRV. But the stuff that you can control and you can put inputs into shouldn't cost you anything. It's just taking care of yourself, breathing, making sure that you're sleeping well, showing gratitude in your life, trying to rewire your brain with positive neuroplasticity. These are the things that go a long way to being able to help your mental health.
And also surround yourself with people that provide some good energy. Like, we become the people we surround ourselves with. So I don't know what that would look like for someone, but if they're not around someone that has an open communication, and maybe your friends make fun of you for talking about how you feel or something like that, like that's probably not the person you want to be around if you're in a tough mental state.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the village that lifted me and my wife up and my son up, whenever we lost Mia, was essential to us. It was our family, it was our friends, it was people that we knew that we could lean on whenever we needed to
Mm-hmm.
be caught, basically. And I'll try not to cry as I talk about this. When my daughter was born and she was on life support, the first person to hold me was my 5-year-old son.
Mm.
I came home and my dad had come over to watch him, and I walked in and I told him Mia was sick and I didn't know if she was going to get better. And I just broke down. And my
Mm.
son, my 5-year-old son that I am like 5 times the size of, just wrapped me up in a hug and held me while I was on my knees. And it was instinct for him to do it. I didn't have to ask him to do that. And he doesn't remember it, by the way. I remember it vividly. He doesn't remember
Of course.
that happening. But it's just a testament to having the people around you that will hold you up when you need to be held up. And you have to be willing to lean on those people.
I think it is important. You bring out a good point there with your son. I think it is important to show, like, for those of you that do have kids, it is important to show your emotions, like not confide in your kids. That's not ideal. You don't want your kids to become parents, but to show emotion that happens to a lot of people, and that usually creates some psychotic people. Um, but just being able to show your emotions and be open with it is
Yeah.
healthy for them to see, so that they can learn how to do that as well.
Share with the people around you. Share with your friends. If you need help, do not try and do it on your own. I think for men, and this goes back to talking to men. I was born in the 80s. I grew up in an era where we were supposed to be strong and we were supposed to be fierce, and things weren't supposed to bother us. And I've had to relearn myself how to share and how to speak on how I feel. And I think the big thing that I tell my clients and the people that I work with and everything is share what you're going through with somebody else. Do not try and carry it on your own.
Yep.
Because if you try and
That's
carry
big.
it on your own, that's when it gets too heavy.
Well, I think that's a good way to end this short little episode. Unless you have something else you want to toss in there. I was going to say, like, Sam and Frodo were holding each other up the whole way through.
Oh man,
Mostly Sam, though.
If you look at, God, the trauma that came from that journey, dear Lord. Sam went home and had like 14 kids. I think that was
Frodo
just born out
left
of
the world.
Yeah, exactly. He was out. I think the last thing I was going to say is find outlets for your stress and recognize if those outlets are healthy or not.
Yeah.
We talked about exercise. I talked about in the video game episode how I game as a stress relief. You may find hobbies and things that help you become less stressed. Do not give those up. As long as they are not damaging you or damaging the world you're in, keep doing them because they are healthy. They are healthier outlets than the people in your life, including yourself. So do not let somebody tell you if you play games to be de-stressed that's not healthy. You should go talk to somebody.
Unless you're doing like 20 hours a day or something, that's probably moderation.
Moderation becomes key, right? And that's with everything. So I think that's the last big thing I want to add. I know
Cool.
We're normally tongue in cheek on the show. We're usually fun. We talk about Lord of the Rings, but it being men's mental health, we wanted to take some time to share that we too go through things and that you are not alone and there are ways for you to be in control of it.
Yes, sir. Thanks for doing this one.
Yes. Thank
All right,
you.
everybody.
And like,
stay strong,
subscribe, all of the normal extra stuff, but real so take care of yourselves.
take care, everybody.